You are now listening to Femme Regard Podcast with Tessa Markle
and Carolina Alvarez.
Femme. Hello and welcome back, Femme Fam. Today, before we get started, let's start right off with the tea. We are doing Simply Balanced, fair trade and organic, mint decaf tea today.
We made sure, well, we didn't make sure, but Tessa made sure to tell me that it was decaf because my pre-workout is giving me the shakes. So
yeah, Carolina and I already had our energy for the day. Well, for the first half of the day, we'll probably have caffeine later.
We'll have to
today.
have another cup of coffee. Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
Yes, but nice and relaxing, mint, all organic from Target, all that jazz.
Well, it tastes quite nice.
Good,
Are you a
I'm
tea
glad we like
drinker?
it.
I do. I drink a lot of tea.
Oh,
Beautiful.
Good. I'm so glad. We
Yeah.
love our guests who appreciate the tea with the show,
Perfect.
And-
I like a lot of different kinds of tea, like Chinese different tea, black tea, green tea.
Do you do the
That's-
loose leaves?
Yes.
You're all about
Yeah.
that
I
too?
have a clay pot with an infuser, and
Nice.
I put the lapsang, suchong, or the kimun, or the oolong, and
Yeah. That's what
Yeah.
I love about tea is there is so many different kinds. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a daily coffee drinker, but like, there's not that, like, I like it black. There's not that much you can do with black coffee. You know what I mean? I mean, sure, there's different roasts, but it's not quite the same.
cowboy coffee, we call it.
Yeah, exactly.
I drink it black too. First
Yeah.
thing in the morning, cowboy coffee.
Every day.
And then I like a tea at night,
Yeah.
just like
Yeah.
getting it ready. Guys, we have Mr. Extraordinaire, executive producer, founding of Hunting Studios, Mr. Regis Brown.
Yay! Greetings to all.
Thank you for traveling all this way to the sunny Culver City. It is a hot 80 degrees today. We went from
Yeah.
like 50 to like,
but it's
okay,
it's
just
a
kidding.
nice
It was
80
never
degrees,
50 degrees
though.
here.
Well,
but
in
it's been
sunny
nice.
Burbank, California, just over the hill
Yeah.
there, it's, you wake up in the morning and it's nice and cool because you're near the mountain, but then you come over the hill and it's a little warmer, but beautiful,
But then you go
beautiful
back and
day
it's like
in Los
90.
Angeles.
Yeah.
It is. It is a beautiful day. Sorry for all you other
Yeah.
folks out there. I'm so sorry. It is a lovely day.
Yeah.
But today we have you in the studio to discuss foreign. I don't know the exact title.
Let's just call it the international film and television business.
I like it.
I like that. I like that. That was a
Yeah.
better intro.
Yeah.
We're gonna cut mine. We're gonna
Yeah.
say that. I love that. When I met you, Regis, you gave me the most interesting, elaborate story on how you even got to Hollywood. And
Oh,
we're not going to
Lord.
go
Yeah.
into all
Yeah.
of that, but I kind of got like the Once Upon a Time Hollywood vibes.
Oh, it was.
Like there was some hitchhiking involved.
Oh, yeah.
There was, and I would love if you could just tell everyone a little bit about where you're from and where you started out.
Sure. I'll give you the quick version. Wow. So I'll start with the part where I decided I'm interested in the film and television
love that.
business. and
Perfect.
I'm at Penn State University, and
Shout out to Pennsylvania.
Yay.
As I'm wearing my Penn shirt right now.
but I had the good fortune. I was afforded the opportunity to run a movie business on campus at Penn State, which involved booking all the movies for the university and showing those movies on the weekends and whatnot for the students and people in the community there up at State College, Pennsylvania. And so we would book the movies and call up Films Incorporated or Swank Motion Pictures or whatever, and we would order those films and they would deliver them, and then we would actually put them in the movie theaters on campus. And so part of that job of running that, I had a number of projectionists that worked for the movie co-op at that time, and so I was able to just hire myself also as a projectionist because it helped me make extra money to pay for
Smart.
to pay for school
There you go.
or buy groceries anyway and pay rent. But so through the process of being a projectionist over the course of a weekend, you'll watch a film 8, 10, 12 times. And, you just sit there and you're watching it the first time and it's like, oh, that's an interesting film. And then you keep going and then it's like you start to notice things.
Mhm.
And I was in the business school at the time. And So I stayed in the business school and, kind of just kept doing that. But as I got further and closer to graduation, I was like, hey, this is a very interesting business. This is art and commerce. And, people do this for a living.
Mm-hmm.
And, in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, wonderful place, Steel Town, USA. where
Tessa knows.
Yeah, I mean,
We already talked about this.
yeah. It's hard to go to your family and say, hey, I'm going to go to Hollywood and get involved in the film and television business. People are like, what? That's crazy.
You're crazy.
That's crazy talk. Don't do that. But anyway, that's exactly what I did when I graduated from Penn State. I decided that I would go out to Hollywood and investigate and get into that business. So I hitchhiked from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, down to Los Angeles, California.
I love that.
Yeah. But I had done a lot of hitchhiking through my college years. It basically hitchhiked the length and width of the United States. And so, it took a good, week to 10 days to get out to California and, whatever along the way. It was fun. And, I arrived in downtown LA and I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to get into the film business.
And there you were, you networked your way. You then eventually got your first gig at a production company, right?
Yeah, that's right. I was like looking for anything and everything. And my first,
That's what you do, guys.
yeah, that's what you
gotta
do,
look
man.
for anything and everything.
Anything and everything. And, my first, I guess you would say my first real job. I mean, the movie business job at Penn State was real, but the first real Hollywood movie business job was with Canon Films, and they were looking for a receptionist in post-production, and Canon Films at the time was the largest independent producer and distributor of independent movies. They were what was called like a mini major. They were doing all of the Chuck Norris, Charles Bronson, Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. And so, they had the full integrated system, development, pre-production, production, post-production, marketing, distribution, what have you. And there was this receptionist job on the second floor. And I was like, cool, I'm going to go for that. And I went for it and I got it. And, and I'm so glad I had the insight to do that because, I know a lot of friends that had gone to film school and stuff like that. And, they were like, no, I'm not gonna, I'm a director or I'm a producer or, I'm this. And I was like, hey man, I'll take the job as a receptionist,
Yep.
And the thing of it is, film schools are great, but they also do a little bit of a disservice, in my opinion, to a lot of people, making them think that they're professional Hollywood grade ready.
Yeah.
The minute they get out. The minute they get out of, look, we go to university to get educated. We don't go to get a job.
Yeah.
Right?
It doesn't matter if you're ready. If you're straight out and you don't know anyone and you haven't been on a set, like you can't.
Forget about it, right?
You can't expect to be in there.
So there I was, and I was the guy who was like, get me a cup of coffee and make some photocopies and fill out these FedEx forms. And I was like, great. So I did. I was doing that.
Yeah.
But, on my lunch hour, I'd go down to the post-production. I'd go down to the edit bay. I got to know all the engineers. They had an ADR Foley room. I'd hang out in there and watch them on the weekends. I'd go to the set and watch them film, And so I quickly learned that it was a business of connections and who you know. I mean, I as the receptionist at Canon Films, I would get resumes from people that had like master's degrees and they were trying to get in the door.
Yeah.
And they couldn't get in the door.
Right.
Whereas after a short period of time having the directory to every person in the building, I was quickly like, I knew where the power sources were and I knew who I wanted to talk to. And I, put my scheme in motion and eventually I waited till the end of the day. The end of the day when all the guardians of the bosses have left for the day, but the boss is still in his office working. And I, took the elevator up to the 5th floor and, hello, sir. Do you have a moment? And, the president of the company was there and he was like, recognized me from the second floor post-production. He's like, yeah, sure. Come on in. What's up? So I sat down and I told them, hey, I'm down there. I'm answering the phone in post-production, loving it. Nice people. Happy to have the gig. I said, but I went to business school, graduated from Penn State. I hitchhiked out here to get involved in the film and television business. I got a place, I got a job, but I aspire to do quite a bit more, and I wanted to let you know and tell you my story. And then the next day I got a call from the human resources department, and they transferred me to the finance department, where I became
Boom.
a booker and national cashier, basically, in the finance department, where we would get all of the film and television revenue from all of the film circuits from the company's movies, and we would have to allocate that. So it was kind of a boring accounting related job at that point, but it was in finance. And so I was starting the process of watching the flow of the money.
Which you, I'm sure, learn so much about.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Like-
to me, I quickly, because around that time also I would be doing some freelance work. I would go out and work on rock videos, be a PA, craft service, whatever. If there was a job and it involved film and television opportunities, my friends and we would go out and we would do those jobs, even if they were, craft service jobs.
Yeah.
But what I learned about working in production is that it's a lot of hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
You got like 12-hour days, and you got a gig that lasts a week, and then you got to go find a new job, and then maybe you get on a film, or maybe you get on a series of, rock videos or something like that. But you're always worried about where's the next job. And that's the life of production, and it's hard to have a normal life like that. But then as I looked at, the structure of Canon Films, and I started to see how the system was working, I gravitated towards the distribution business, because there was a professional, there was a professional level jobs there that paid well, but then these people had regular gigs, right? Like it's hard to have a normal life just working in production.
Yeah.
But when you have a regular gig, and you can count on the paycheck and the health care and all of those kind of things that go with a regular steady job, it makes life a little easier. And so I looked at the distribution business at that point as kind of, like executive producer training school.
Yeah.
Like what I observed at Canon Films was the president and the people who ran the distribution company were very close. Like, but directors and actors and people in production, grips, and all, God bless them, they came and went. But the president of the company wanted to talk to the person running the distribution company pretty much on a regular basis.
Yeah.
They'd go to lunch, whatever. And then the development people would also be involved in that, because, distribution informs the company on what to make.
Right.
If you can't sell it, don't make it.
Yeah.
At least if you're in that part of the business where you're making film and television for entertainment purposes, and you expect to sell it and make a profit.
Not quite the same for independent filmmaking then?
Well, I mean, I guess
you still want to make something, that you want to know your audience always, but
yes,
if your end goal is to also sell and be successful there, you should probably take that into consideration.
Sure. I mean, I still break it down into three kind of different categories. It's not all mutually exclusive, but I look at it like this. There's film and television for the purpose of like information, documentaries, news. And that's a whole world unto itself, right? And that's a legitimate approach to the craft. Then there's film and television for the sake of art, and that is certainly a noble calling. And that's a thing unto itself. It's not driven by profit so much. People, give grants and endowments for people to go do that kind of thing. And then there's film and television for the purposes of entertainment and business. And that was the area I gravitated to. And that has its whole own unique set of rules. I mean, you're making a product to make a profit,
Right.
first and foremost. And you're making a product for an audience that you're trying to entertain. So now you need to really follow the rules if you're in that space.
Gotcha.
And the rules are, what demographic are you trying to, who are you producing this product for?
Mhm.
And what are the competing products out there? And so as you look at that, distribution becomes a very important component of that process. And so, Canon Films was a company that produced entertainment for entertainment purposes and intended to make a profit through it. So they would make these movies, Missing in Action and, Cyborg and, Death Wish and all of those and lots of others, like the Canon Films had a big library, but they were first and foremost, entertainment vehicles to make a profit. And so when you look at the business that way, then you have to really look at your development process and then your sales and marketing process and your distribution process. And what I found out was just right up my alley was the distribution department had this thing called the Cannes Film Festival that they would go to. And this is where, everybody would go and, they would buy and sell the films. And this is where you would sell the films so that you would pre-sell them in a sense so that you could finance the cost of productions.
Yeah.
You'd meet all these people that were buying the films and then you could aggregate those, commitments to purchase the product that you were planning to make to use that money to produce and pay for the cost of production. And so being an Army brat and having traveled around the world and then being able to see that the business had an opportunity to had an international flavor, I was like,
Here we
wow,
go.
that's for me.
Yeah.
And so I moved closer and closer to that area. And so in my opinion or in my view of the Hollywood architecture, I came to see the international distribution business as executive producer training school. It teaches you, it taught me what the market wanted in terms of product and trends and whatnot. And then I got to study, what the market was willing to pay, whether it was German speaking or French speaking, or whether it was
So
Spanish. I
crazy.
mean, so as for many years, my core business was distribution. I would sell movies and television shows to different television networks and movie circuits around the world. And, different markets pay different rates. But once you start to understand that the top 10 markets of the world will deliver you the most in terms of license fees, that helps you finance production. Now that informs your development slate. You're not going to go make some random thing.
Right.
You're going to
Yeah.
make something that
You have the
meets that market demand,
Yeah.
right? If you're pursuing that piece of the business. Now, if you're like back there in that other area, talking about just making something for art or making something for documentary, which that's totally legitimate, but it just depends on where your interests lie.
And as an independent filmmaker, you could still enter the commercial, or not commercial, but the third option where you are like selling to those bigger production companies. But you again just have to play by those rules, because now
Yeah.
you have Netflix that you can kind of pitch your work to, or
Sure.
and you just have to be aware it's a different structure and ball game.
Well, I think there's no question now that the industry is it's a global business, right? I mean, if you're going to take the time, effort, and energy to make any piece of media, whether it's a short or, a half an hour episode or a 1 hour episode or a full feature film, why not make something that has a chance to sell to as many markets as possible?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's something we discovered
Yeah.
pretty quickly.
I mean, it's so hard to get it together for just, you might as well give yourself as much chance as you can to succeed.
Yeah.
And the way you do that is to, open yourself up to other markets. I mean, it's fine just to focus on the U.S. market, but it's sort of, in my opinion, a little short-sighted. I mean, there's a whole world out there. And the problem with Hollywood, and I love Hollywood, but the problem is that the industry here is very mature and the barriers to entry are very high. Meaning, like, if you're looking at the studio system, Disney, Warner Brothers, the Universal, what have you, that system is very mature and
Mhm.
there's unionized issues, and it's hard for somebody who doesn't have family in the system or hasn't grown up here in Hollywood to come in and break in and get into those, get into those meaningful jobs.
Mhm.
Just getting those jobs. It's not like you call up Universal, say, hey, I'm ready to be an art director.
Right.
You'll
Yeah.
start, or I'm ready to be a writer now. They're going to say, well, no, we only deal with SAG or WGA or, this union or that union. It's very difficult to get through that. Whereas if you look to the international market, there's all sorts of burgeoning film and television industries happening all over the world.
Mhm.
30
Right.
years ago, maybe not as much, but now, there's a lot of opportunity to get in there and do production and, not have to, be solely reliant on the Hollywood studio system.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know I really didn't realize how important, I guess, the international market is to even independent films. Like if you're trying to get any sort of distribution and make any sort of profit, like you really have to explore that. And I think people just think, oh, well, I'm making this movie in English here in America, so I'm going to try to sell it here in America. But really,
Right.
I mean, the world is huge, guys. Like,
Yeah.
there are so many other markets, and a
Yeah.
lot of them want English speaking. A lot of them can afford to overdub it into their language. Like, it's not that hard to sell to any other country that doesn't speak English. And it's really important to explore
Well,
that.
that's right. And the thing is like my advice to anybody, to the extent it matters, but my advice to anybody who's seriously considering a career in the film and television business, before you start making film and television, or somewhere along that path and early rather than later, you need to go to the market. You need to go to the Cannes Film Festival, or you need to go to the MIPCOM Festival, which is also in Cannes, but is more at a different time of year.
Mhm.
You need to go to, Hong Kong Film Mart or the London screenings. You need to go to market.
Mhm.
And market is these different, they talk about film festivals like Sundance and stuff like that. And that is that's a film festival and it's great. But that has a sort of like creative flair kind of, publicity kind of thing.
Mhm.
I'm talking about the business market like Cannes
Yeah.
or MIPCOM, where the buying and selling takes place.
Mm.
You need to go there and you need to, pay the entry fee and walk around for a few days and see what companies are doing and what the market is doing.
Mhm.
Because then you're going to have a sense of proportion. I mean, there is a tremendous amount of product in the
Yeah.
world market. And, if you're not 8 out of 10 or better in every category of development, and I'm talking character, story, I'm talking about, your cinematography, your direction,
Mhm.
your acting and all. If you're not 8 out of 10 or better, don't go and
Yeah.
don't spend the money. I mean,
Right.
not to market, I'm saying stop yourself from spending money on production until you have a professional product.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean that, you shouldn't try to do stuff. Everybody should, there were a lot of things that we did in the early days, just, with a few friends and some cameras and some sound equipment and all of that. And you do that. But the thing is when you start moving towards, the professional business of making a living
Yeah.
through making entertainment in film and television, you got to step up to the standards that are expected
Right.
Absolutely.
and
know what they are.
and know what they are. And the fastest way you're going to understand that is to go to market and see what's what. And market's fun, by the way. It's a bunch of people hanging out, buying and selling film and television, and then having cocktail parties and going off to restaurants and all of that stuff. It costs a bit to go, but you really come away with a sense of, understanding of what the market will bear.
Mhm.
I love that you broke that down, because I don't know why I just picture market like a job fair where everyone's at a little booth and it's like,
Yeah.
everyone's in suits and like it's like real like
It's a variety. I mean, you'll have, Buena Vista will have this big, huge booth, and Paramount and, Netflix and, they all have their big, huge booths. And yeah, people are dressed up in their business suits and whatnot. But, at the same time, you have they're advertising all of this fun, Avengers and different movies and different television shows and all of that stuff. And then the people from the different countries are like, hey, yeah, we'd like to have that here. And, we run a series of, movie theaters and we have blah, blah, blah. We own this network, and they go and they buy that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, like the BBC in the UK is like top broadcaster.
Yeah.
But they don't just broadcast only British content.
Right.
They want SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah.
And where are they going to get it? They're going to get it at the market because they're talking to Nickelodeon, And so, it's a fascinating thing because, there's not, it's a small community. I mean, there are thousands of people at the market, but, the real decision makers, when you start looking at the top networks and the top, movie circuits and all of that stuff, once you get piped into that group and that, so-and-so buys for, France Television and so-and-so buys for ABC TV Australia and so-and-so buys for, Channel 5 UK. And you go to market and you set your meetings and you book them in advance and you go see those people. And then that's a whole other story, trying to get those meetings. You spend a lot of time having people tell you no. That's the other thing about this business. I mean, no means no today. It doesn't. I
love that.
But you can't make, you can't turn into an irritation for a person. It's like trying to date the pretty girl in school. If you ask her out and she's like, no, you almost expect the first time she's going to say no, and she's testing your commitment. You gotta expect no. Say if you can't get in the front door, you go around and knock on the back door. If you can't get, that's right. You got to work the angles. If you can't get in the back door, you knock on the window. It's a process.
Yeah, it is. It's a process.
And then you find a reason to reach out to that person again and say, hey, remember you told me blah blah blah. Well, I kind of. We've revisited our development and we've you're trying to get the selling of a product to a buyer isn't a one-off occasion.
Yeah.
I mean, it used to take me anywhere from, I would say 7 to 12 meetings over the course of a year before I could get a buyer into a discussion as to whether they were going to give me money for the product. The first meeting would have been like a cup of coffee. And hey, how are things going? And I see that you're getting an excellent rating on this show. Do you see any time slots opening up? What are you looking for? And then I go after that and craft my argument to mirror that discussion. And hey, you were telling me you were looking for something all family with a kind of environmental spin. Will you take? We've got this idea,
Okay.
And then you start massaging that discussion. Now, they're not going to make a decision right then and there. They're going to say, yeah, but if we, and so you take their suggestions and you go away and you say, hey, remember when you told me that, it would be interesting if we had some kind of like, maybe we had some bears or maybe we had some, koalas or something. So we ran with that in development, and now, let me show you this, this new take here.
Yeah.
That's selling, because now what you've done is you've taken that person's idea and invested them in your idea.
Yeah.
They're going to be more interested in that. See, every buyer, network, whatever, they all want to be producers.
Yeah.
So they want to feel ownership.
You hear that, guys?
They want to feel ownership in the concept that they're buying.
Right.
And that doesn't happen in one meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
If you're selling content that way, that's just library product. And yes, somebody else is probably going to be responsible for that. But the head buyer isn't looking for that. The head buyer is looking for the next great, TV series or movie or something like that. And you're going to have to know that they're going to want to feel emotionally involved in that. They want to be able to say, see that? I did that. I bought that. Yeah. And the reason that character's in there, that's because I told him to do it.
Yeah. No, it's true. They want to feel invested, like that they had a voice in it. Anyone does when they're buying something. They want to feel like it's kind of their idea too.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
like,
that's the art of the sell. To build them into the enthusiasm of green lighting that specific product.
Yeah.
Showing them the script and the development, and
That's where. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you a second ago, but what I was wondering is, at that given instance, the development, or should you have some parts of it shot? Do you have the whole movie shot? Like, where in stages of development should you be confident to then go speak to a DC or someone at market?
Well, so there's no one set way to do this, right? And then there's a different framework. I mean, you've got your studio business, and then you've got your independent business, and then you've got international co-productions where you're working with other producers so that you can collaborate in order to raise the money to make something. But let's just say, for discussion purposes, that you're talking about a television series or a movie that you want to do, and it's an independent product, and you need to raise $8 million to make 26 episodes, or you need to raise $5 million to make the movie, or whatever. The first step, in my opinion, would be, it's like, well, who's going to buy what we're making? I mean, who are our targeted buyers? And so you get your list together of, okay, we're going to go after Netflix, and we're going to go after HBO, and we're going to go after whatever.
Yeah.
So you get your whole list of that together, and you shouldn't limit yourself just to the U.S. market, because, why exclude all those other buyers? Because sometimes you could get the enthusiasm of an international partner before you get to a U.S. partner, and then you can go to your U.S. partner and say, oh, and by the way, we've built in. The BBC UK is interested in this show, and they've agreed to come on board for 30%, and so now it's all of a sudden that somebody else is involved.
Yeah,
and it gives it more credibility or whatever.
We're already huge in England.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you can do all of this at the development phase.
Susie already agreed to take me to the prom.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I'm putting her on the back burner. We don't know, but
exactly right. So I mean, you massage that process, and ideally you would have a portfolio of things, because it's hard to just put all your eggs in one basket.
Right.
But when you go and you meet with these different buyers, you can't be like, it's creativity by the pound. If you don't like that one, here's this one. And if you don't like that, I mean, you can do that maybe with 2 ideas and still maintain credibility. But if you start being like, oh, well, let me pull out my bag and show you the 500 pieces of development I have until you tell me that's the one you want. No, nobody wants that meeting, and they won't ever invite you back.
Yeah.
So you go in with 1 or 2 really well thought out ideas. And if they tell you, look, those aren't for us, you're like, okay, no problem. Just so I know, what's on your radar? What are you looking for? Whatever. And then you don't call them up the next week and go back or whatever. Right. You got to let some time pass by, and you find a way to get to a cocktail party that they're going to be at, or you find a way to be at some social function. Hey, you organically develop the relationship, so these people like to see you. And then when the time is right, and you'll feel it, you go back and you ask for another chance to pitch something new, right? But it's about assembling those elements that they're going to be enthusiastic about. And in order to do that in the right way, I think you need to know something about the person and the organization that you're trying to sell to. What is their audience? Who is their audience?
Yeah.
What do they what do they represent? What are they about? And who are their competitors, so that if they say no, we can go to them,
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of that kind of work that needs to be done, and you have to be prepared to hear no a lot. But that's okay, that's just part of the process.
Just no for now.
Yeah. No means no today.
Yeah.
No does not mean no tomorrow.
Well, thank you so much for all of that. That just, you learn slowly how all of that works as you are a filmmaker out here. And that really clears up a lot for me personally. I hope for you listeners too, that was really helpful. And it's just, it's another
a way for you
whole
to do
market
your
to think of.
research.
And yeah.
Yeah, and figure out where where can I meet these buyers? Where the market happening? You know,
Yeah.
Regis listed a bunch of
Yeah, there's a lot of
festivals
markets out there, festival. I mean, distinguish the difference between a film festival that people go to sort of publicize their film
Mm-hmm.
and, PR opportunities, for actors and actresses and whatnot, um, film competition type things. That's all fun and fine and well. But you got to find the market.
Mm-hmm.
That's the business,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's where, you've got to start identifying the buyers, what kind of product they're looking for, and what market they're serving.
Mm-hmm.
I do a lot of animation work. Nickelodeon is not the same as Cartoon Network. Is
Right.
not the same as Disney. Those people in the animation business that look at a product and they'll be like, yeah, that's a Nickelodeon product.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so you have to develop a sensibility of knowing that that this is a Netflix opportunity, but it's not an HBO opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, there's subtleties in the development.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that it can't be tweaked.
Mm-hmm.
If you make a pitch to Netflix, they say no. Find somebody else, they're interested. You modify it a little.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. If our listeners want to contact you to ask you any more questions or anything, is there any way you would like to share LinkedIn or anything like that?
Just go to regisbrown.com.
Amazing. There you go,
There we
guys. Super
go.
easy.
Thank you, Regis. Thanks for sporting. He looks super dapper today, y'all.
Yes.
He's sporting the Network Studios colors. I love it.
I'm old school Hollywood,
Three-piece suit. Way to go.
I love it. Thank you so much, Regis.
Hey, my
Yes, thank
pleasure.
you.
Happy to chat anytime.
Thanks for listening to Femme Regard Podcast. If you like what you hear, tune in next time for more tips on the filmmaking business and insightful conversations with industry professionals over tea.
We can only grow with your support, so please subscribe, share, rate, and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. If you leave us a great comment, we might give you a shout out on the show. For more on us, check us out at femregard.com.